Imagine being a 10-year-old boy, standing in front of a new classroom, filled with unfamiliar faces, yet standing tall with pride as you speak of the one person you admire most, your father. You say, with all the belief in your heart, that he is an FBI agent. Instead of applause or admiration, your words are met with cruel laughter. The very teacher meant to protect you, to guide you, calls you a liar. This was the reality for Elijah Brooks. Elijah and his family had just moved into Willow Creek, a small, picturesque town that hid its prejudices behind well-manicured lawns and neighborhood block parties. For Elijah, this was the fourth move in as many years, but something about this one felt heavier, more permanent. The two-story house on Maple Lane was freshly renovated, and the family had high hopes. But from the very first day, Elijah noticed the way neighbors watched them from behind curtains and half-closed blinds. He was different here, and the town made sure he knew it. Elijah's first day at Willow Creek Elementary was filled with tension. On the school bus, he felt every pair of eyes follow him, the whispers coiling around him like smoke. When he arrived, his homeroom teacher, Mrs. Finley, barely acknowledged him. She introduced him with a quick nod and returned to her desk, her glasses perched on her nose like a wall between her and the world. She pointed to a desk next to Trevor Hastings, the golden boy of Willow Creek, son of the local high school's football coach. Trevor didn't even glance at Elijah. He simply scooted his chair away as if Elijah's very presence was an inconvenience. The days passed in a fog of loneliness. In the cafeteria, Elijah would roam from table to table, only to be met with cold shoulders and awkward glances. Eventually, he settled into a quiet corner with his lunch, away from the buzz of conversation and laughter. Every rejection carved a deeper hole in his spirit. But Elijah didn't complain. He was used to starting over. Then came career day. Mrs. Finley announced it with her usual detached enthusiasm. Each student was asked to prepare a short presentation about their parents' jobs. To Elijah, it was an opportunity, a chance to finally be seen, to share something he was proud of. His father, James Brooks, was a senior agent in the FBI, a decorated officer who had spent the last 15 years working in counterterrorism. Elijah idolized him. The night before career day, Elijah carefully chose a photograph of his dad receiving a commendation, his badge gleaming in the spotlight. It wasn't just a picture. It was a symbol of sacrifice, of honor. Elijah practiced his speech late into the night, his voice full of pride. When the day came, Elijah entered the classroom with a nervous excitement. He clutched the photograph close, his palms sweaty. One by one, the other students shared about their parents, firefighters, nurses, small business owners. Then it was Elijah's turn. Before he could begin, Trevor leaned back in his chair and smirked. "So what does your dad do, Elijah? Is he, like, in the CIA or something?" The class erupted in laughter. Elijah steadied himself. "My father is a senior FBI agent," he said, his voice quiet but resolute. More laughter followed. Snickering, eye rolls. Mrs. Finley stood up, arms crossed. "Elijah, let's not make up stories, all right?" Her words cut deeper than any of the laughter. "This isn't some TV show. Be honest." Elijah opened his folder and held up the photograph. "It's true. This is my dad. This is his badge." Mrs. Finley didn't even glance at the photo. "That's enough. Sit down." Humiliation washed over Elijah in waves. He sat down slowly, the photograph now feeling like a weight in his hands. The rest of the day blurred past him. The whispers were worse now, crueler. Even the teacher wouldn't meet his eyes. That evening, James Brooks returned home from work to find his son quiet, withdrawn. After some coaxing, Elijah told him everything. James listened carefully. He'd dealt with ignorance before. But this was personal. The next day, during the parent-teacher conference, James arrived early. He wore a plain suit, but his posture, his presence, spoke volumes. Across from him sat Mrs. Finley, already fidgeting. James placed his FBI badge on the table. The room fell silent. "I'm Senior Agent Brooks," he said, voice calm but firm. "That's my badge. This is the letter of my clearance. And this is the commendation my son brought to school. The one you dismissed." Mrs. Finley's eyes widened. I didn't know." "You didn't believe him," James corrected. "Not because of evidence, but because of your assumptions." She stammered. "I didn't mean." "He deserves a public apology. Not just from you, but from the class." That afternoon, Mrs. Finley stood before the students. Her voice trembled slightly. "I was wrong. Elijah's father is, in fact, a senior FBI agent, and I should never have doubted him. I apologize for calling him a liar." Elijah sat silently, the class turning to look at him with a mixture of awe and discomfort. The next day, James visited the class. He stood tall in front of the chalkboard. Respect and truth, he told them, should never be overshadowed by ignorance. His words struck a chord. Even Trevor lowered his eyes. Later that week, Trevor approached Elijah during recess. "Hey, man, I was out of line. I'm sorry." From that day on, Elijah wasn't the invisible kid anymore. He wasn't just the boy with the FBI dad. He was the one who stood tall when it mattered. Slowly, the stares turned into greetings. The silence became conversation. And then something even more unexpected happened. News of the confrontation between James Brooks and the school began to circulate beyond Willow Creek Elementary. A local journalist, whose daughter attended the school, wrote a heartfelt article titled, "The Day Truth Walked Into Our Classroom." It went viral. Within days, media outlets picked up the story. People from across the country wrote letters to Elijah, praising his bravery. The school district launched an internal review. Mrs. Finley was asked to step down. In her place came a new teacher, Mr. Delgado, who opened his first class by saying, "This room belongs to the truth, and to those who are brave enough to speak it." A month later, Elijah was invited to speak at a regional youth leadership conference. He stood on stage in front of hundreds of students, teachers, and parents. With a microphone in hand and heart racing, he shared his story, not to shame, but to inspire. Sometimes, the truth feels like a lonely road, but it's the road that leads to change. If you believe in something, stand by it. Even if you're the only one standing. The applause was thunderous. Elijah's story became part of a school-wide initiative. A new program, Voices of Integrity, was launched to promote empathy, truth, and accountability in schools. Elijah, now seen as a symbol of courage, was asked to help design its logo. Years later, Elijah would look back at that moment in the classroom, not with bitterness, but with pride. Because in standing up for the truth, he hadn't just reclaimed his own dignity. He had sparked a change that echoed far beyond the walls of Willow Creek Elementary. And as for James Brooks, he continued his work in the field, prouder than ever. But not because of his badge or title, because of his son. A boy who reminded the world that even in the face of doubt, one voice, armed with truth, is enough to shake the ground. The final chapter of this story wasn't written by punishment or revenge. It was written by redemption. And it ended with respect. Real, earned, and everlasting.